Oops, that was me. I'm so sorry. I didn't start the recording.
Okay.
Sorry about that. So it'll be
No
recorded
problem.
from this point on. But we have the climate one that went over the collaboration
Okay.
table from yesterday.
Eileen, I think we had planned to stop here and see at this point if people have questions just about, you know, this kind of collaboration process and the spreadsheet, and then we'll come back to kind of more broader clarifying questions after that. But so we can.
So you can either put your question in the chat, you can direct it to me or Tom, or you can raise your hand. And I think we have one, Tom, right there, Douglas Meckel.
Okay.
Hi. I was looking at the spreadsheet, and admittedly, I'm not a real spreadsheet kind of guy. So, but the top seemed to indicate one part, and then there was the break, and it said need help. So it's a little, are they all separate projects, or do you need help in each one? You see,
Somebody wrote that in, that wasn't us.
Okay, line 8. That's what
that
I was
was
wondering.
Douglas, that was me. I apologize. That was just when we were going over the spreadsheet yesterday. We were making a case of like, if you need help with the proposal, you can just write it. You can just write it in this.
Oh, okay.
Cell, and then I forgot to delete it. Sorry for the confusion.
Okay, gotcha then.
Okay. So that's gone.
Okay, I'm going to stop sharing again.
Anybody else? I think Leslie Sauer has her hand up.
A simple question. You said you were sending out a link that we could use to get to the spreadsheet. When you send that out, or when you send out emails in general, is it possible to like have a running list of the links you sent? I find myself going back and looking for different emails for different links, like the Forest Action Plan or the webinar.
Yeah.
And if they could just be all on the most recent email, I think as a running list might be helpful.
Answer is
Sure. Good idea. Okay. Any other questions on the spreadsheet, how to connect with people to collaborate?
Douglas, your hand is still raised. Is that a legacy hand? We used that terminology yesterday. Or do you have a new question? Okay, there he goes.
That is a legacy hand, but since Leslie was on the Zoom call, I was trying to find her book and couldn't find it.
Leslie, maybe you can send us a link to where people can access your book, and I'll go ahead and put it in the chat. I lost her. She's in there.
Okay, I think she's...
But I will send you
on mute. There you go.
Island Press.
Okay. Yeah, just send it to me or Tom in the chat, and we will send it to everyone.
All right, we've got a hand for Jim Lyons.
Yeah, just 2 quick questions. So we can use this template to present ideas or concepts, but separately we can also submit, say, a written proposal limited to what, 2,500 characters, I guess. And I'm just wondering how concepts like that then would get shared with the group.
Well, starting, I would say, with our meetings on July 11th and 12th, I believe, so July 11th is the Climate Group and July 12th is the Ecological Workgroup. We'll start to work through proposals as a group.
Okay.
So the co-chairs are still discussing exactly how we're going to manage that. But, you know, we're waiting to see what comes in, obviously, by the July 5th deadline. And I think it's fair to say we'll be selecting from proposals that come in by that deadline to tee some up for discussion on the 11th and the 12th. And then we'll be, you know, communicating with the sponsors of those proposals in advance of the 11th and 12th to let them know that their proposals are going to be on the agenda. And we'll be sharing more details with everyone in terms of how we're going to kind of facilitate that conversation around each proposal.
Okay.
And the proposals that come in later, you know, we'll get teed up for subsequent meetings. And, you know, all this is a bit of a learning process because, you know, we don't know yet how many proposals we're going to have. We want to try to consolidate proposals that are around similar topics to the extent that we can, but that's going to be hard because because we have a rolling system here, you know, we're going to have proposals coming in. And so it's going to be a little harder to group proposals than it would be if we had them all at, you know, at the same time. So, but we'll do our best to have some kind of rational approach to how we deal with proposals as they come in. And we'll see how many we get, how long it takes us to work through proposals, and then kind of fine tune, you know, as we go.
And just to further complicate things, in the end, you're hoping to have two different concepts or two different strategies reflecting the two different groups, I assume. Or are you hoping this all comes together in the end between the two different task forces, if you will, that you're managing? I guess I'm just thinking, Tom, that some of the concepts that I'm thinking about apply to both, and may be useful in that context, but not so for some of the other things that might deal with, say, climate as opposed to ecological health, as an example.
Right.
It's hard for
right.
me to distinguish the two, but you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's challenging. I mean, I think the co-chairs are going to do our best to try to park, you know, conversations appropriately in each of the two work groups, and to try to avoid, you know, one work group going off in a direction that's really, you know, different from or at odds with what's emerging out of another work group around the same issue.
Right.
So again, this is one of those things I wish I had the answer to right now. I think we're going to have to just kind of navigate this as it arises and do our best to, but, you know, and they're both really large work groups. And we felt like if we were dealing with every issue with the entirety of everyone involved here, it would be unmanageable. It's already pretty challenging to manage, you know, with a group of this size as it is. So we felt like we needed to try to break it down some.
That's helpful. I'm just trying to figure out how to frame what I submit. So thank you.
Yeah, so we are going to talk about the proposal submission process. So if you have questions, I'd say wait until after we go through them. But if you have a question on the collaboration or whatever else, we'll take them. I think we have Kristen Ace.
Buddy, just a quick question about exactly what you're saying. I mean, I don't have a proposal, but I want to work with a group. And so how do I do that?
Do you know what topic you want to work on?
Reforestation and invasives.
Then I would go ahead into that collaboration and I would say, you know, proposal topic, reforestation.
Okay.
And then say, I am interested in joining on a proposal that deals with this issue, and include your email address. And that says to people, you're there, you want to collaborate.
Perfect. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Okay, Theodore Chase.
Ted, you got to unmute.
I was just thinking, if you're concerned about the number of proposals, I'd keep an eye on them and encourage people with similar proposals to get together and produce one broader proposal.
Yeah.
That's the hope. And that's why we did the collaboration. But we also know that as proposals come in, we might see some similar ones, and we'll be in contact with the sponsors who submit them to say, hey, why don't you work together? Your two proposals seem similar to us, and we are going to connect you. So there's two opportunities to collaborate: in advance of your proposal and then after.
Right. And if the sponsors are not on board with that, they might say, well, you know, we actually have a pretty different idea about how to deal with this issue than the other group. Then I think we'll try to tee those proposals up for discussion at the same time to the extent we can, right? Because it's going to be rolling and we may get proposals later. But if we can, we'll say, all right, well, today we're going to, you know, we have 2 or 3 proposals related to invasive species. We're going to talk about those today. I'm going to talk about them as a group and try to tease out, you know, amongst everyone involved, kind of where we all fall on those different ideas for approaching an issue. And is it possible, you know, in some cases we may need to try to forge some consensus, right? And meld some ideas together.
Okay. Hey, Paula Jackalou.
Yeah, I'm trying to fill out the proposal and I'm a little bit challenged with filling out the cells properly. I don't know if you would offer any breakout rooms at some point where I could get somebody to help me. Because I have an idea, but I don't know if you can see the table. I'm not doing so well.
Yeah, in fact, Paula, that someone else just asked for that too. Send, let's communicate via the New Jersey Forest Task Force Gmail account, and we can put your ideas into the table. I tell you what, these Google Sheets are a pain in the neck. I will admit that. So if you know what your project idea is and the additional information, we can insert that in for you. Just send us an email.
Yeah, I don't know what email you're talking about because I just finished up literally with grades less than an hour ago. And so I missed the first couple of meetings when you might have given that information out, and I apologize.
I'm going to put it in the chat right now.
Thank you.
Gmail. Okay. Oh, Ken Dulski has a question.
Not really a question. I just was looking at the table and I realized what happened. Was it Paula's situation? The cell wasn't formatted to wrap the text, and I fixed it. And so that was the problem. And so if all the cells are, my suggestion would be to set up with the format all the cells so that they wrap.
Yeah.
So individuals don't have to go in and deal with that.
Perfect.
Thanks, Ken. We're going to send all the questions to you now. On the
Yeah,
spreadsheet.
I've had plenty of good times with Google Sheets. Yes.
All right. Okay, so there's still more time to ask questions, but we'll move on to the proposal submission component of today. But before I do that, those of you who are going to be represented by an organization, you know that we're just asking for a letterhead letter with just a sentence designating you as the organization's voting member. We've been receiving those, so it's just a reminder for those of you who are representing an organization to send that letter in. As you know, anyone can participate in this effort, private citizen, it's perfectly fine, but there are people who are representing organizations. So that's just a reminder. So for the proposal submission, the easiest way, I think, to see how a proposal goes is to look at one. So I'm going to share the screen. And first I'll show you the general blank proposal submission form, and I'll put the link to this in the chat once we go through it. This is what let me see if I can make it bigger again. This is what it looks like. Here we go. Okay, how's that? Can you read that? All right, so you can see the instructions. You see that we changed the due date to July 5th, so that's in here now. So good. And here's the instructions. And oops, you've heard about the instructions before. Let me scroll down. Just be mindful of copyrighted material. I'm going to talk a little bit about these references in a minute. But these links, there's 1, 2, 3, there's 4 of them. It's 4 opportunities for you to find what's called open access articles. These are articles that anyone can download and print and share. And those are the preferred articles that we ask you to use if you're using references. You certainly don't have to use references, but if you are, we ask that you use public or what's called open access. One of the things about the proposal form is that you do need a Google account. The reason for this, you didn't need a Google account for our other forms, but because we have a file upload function here, it's going to require you to set up a Google account if you do not already have one. They're free. I'll ask that you set one up specifically for task force work. They're handy to have anyway, because we're using the Google platform for all of our sharing. But you know, when you use free tools, this is how you pay for it, right? They want people to sign up. So apologies for that, but you do have to have a Google account. Here we have our account in order to complete the proposal form. So here you'll put your email, your name, or if it's an organizational submission, the name of the person submitting, that will be the proposal sponsor. The names of additional submitters. These are your collaborators. So we ask for one point of contact, one representative for your proposal. Even if you have a team of 5 or 10 people working on it, we'll have one point of contact, and then go ahead and list your additional collaborators. Then you put your organization, if you have one. If you don't, just put NA. You'll see the red asterisk means that it's a mandatory answer. Just put NA. I don't have an organization. I'm submitting on behalf of myself. If you're submitting on behalf of an organization, put the organization's name down. And then again, your collaborators' organizations next. And here's what Tom was referring to earlier. If you're a private resident, you're submitting on your own, you just hit no. And that's fine. It's not going to be rejected. It's just that we do like to know if your organization is submitting, if they have signed off on it. And then which work group you're on, the general topic area, including other, if you don't see your topic there, your title, and then your narrative. Oh, here I have an example. Okay, that's one. And then your opportunity to put references. We've distinguished peer review literature from other references. Peer review literature is considered, the cream of the crop. If you happen to have, if you have a proposal that cites a peer reviewed article, great. Here's an opportunity to add it. Or if you have a report, a textbook, a newspaper article, any material like that, you can load it up under other. So we have Joe Bosraelian, who is a member of the Ecological Work Group, Ecological Health, has granted us permission to use his proposal that he submitted as an example. We're asking that proposals be very focused, something that we can discuss and come to consensus on. Joe submitted one, well, I think just a couple of days ago, and it really does fulfill what we're looking for. So I'm going to go down. Thank you, Joe. I don't see you here, but I know you're here, and I really do thank you for allowing us to share. So he put his email, his name, and he said numerous. Something like this, numerous submitters, that will come out when we discuss. As this proceeds, we will likely ask Joe to identify the additional submitters, but he is the point of contact. He's not doing this on behalf of an organization. He's submitting it, a good idea on his own, ecological health, and his happens to be a funding economics subject matter. Here's his title, very direct. Forest to faucet block rate water billing. Kind of know exactly what he's talking about with that title. Very specific, short title. And then here's his narrative. And a couple of things, you don't have to read the narrative, although you can if you want. But what I want to point out is that he's recommending a specific action that the legislature or someone can enact if they so chose. Another thing I wanted to point out are the references. A lot of people are getting bogged down by the references. And I say, don't worry about it. Here, he's referring to an attachment, which he included, he uploaded. But look at how he's making his citations. He numbered them because he wanted to save space in his narrative. He didn't want to waste space, by putting a whole citation in. So he numbered them. Perfectly acceptable. We do ask, though, if you have a link, if you're referencing something and you don't have the file, the PDF or the Word file, you want to cite a link. Links will go into this narrative. Documents will be uploaded. So again, here again, he has, oops, let me get rid of this. He's got his reference number there, saving him some space. He's got his, oh, look at my things didn't go away. Let me erase this. Sorry, they're fancy, but you gotta, all right. Then he has his, oh, it keeps, where is it? I'm trying to be fancy and now it's a pain. Okay, here we go. So then he has the rest of his 2,500 characters, not including spaces. And then he happens to not have any peer-reviewed references. All of his references are other types of documents. And you see, he's numbered them, 1, 2, 2A, 3. And that's how we know which document goes to his citations. And again, if you take a look at the type of citations here, researchers saw 17% reduction. There's his citation. Those are the things you cite. If you have a statistic, if you have, you know, a statement that needs validation, that's the kind of thing you cite. It's not a literature search. It's not a scientific meta-analysis. So, so based on yesterday, I do want to let folks know, don't get hung up on references. What we really want is a concise, focused narrative that that addresses a legislative recommendation. So I'm going to stop sharing here. I want to make sure I got all the points. We have several other points we want to make about proposals. I said Google account. I think I did everything that a lot of folks asked, I'm on climate and ecological health. My proposal is both. Pick the one work group that you think it matches the best. All 4 of us will see all the proposals. So if Anjali sees a proposal that comes in from ecological health, and I say, oh, Anjali, this looks like it could be also climate related, we will know that. And those topics we're going to either deal with individually, or those might be topics that we bring both work groups together, or we create a subgroup. So I'm going to stop there. We'll have more discussion, but we want to take some time now for questions about the proposal submission. So we'll do some raise. How do you want to do that, Tom?
I just want to make one more editorial comment, if I could, just about the proposals. Just to remind people again, you know, what our charge is, right? What we were asked by Senator Smith to look at issues related to the management, protection, restoration of our public forest lands. So there's a lot of great ideas out there. If proposals that come in that, you know, are really not connected to our charge and our mission, it may be a great idea, but we're just not going to have the time or the ability to consider those. So we're really going to stick to proposals. We have to stick to proposals that, you know, directly, you know, relate to our charge. Okay, that's it.
Okay, I think there's a hand up, Tom. I'm just putting the link in if you want to take that.
Okay, Emil, I see you've got your hand up.
Yeah, I thought we said yesterday that we could create a Word document with links for the things that we can't upload and put the word, in other words, have just like Joe did it, have all those references 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. But if there are things we can't upload, just have those have those numbers refer to links that could be in a Word document. That way there's still a pathway for people to find them if they're able to, you know, have access.
Yeah, that was raised yesterday as a question, and we're still considering that. In fact, what you're asking, can we just send a bibliography with links? So it sounds like a great idea. The only thing is that the proposals that we will be discussing as a work group, background material that are submitted in addition, we do ask people to read that background information, which is why, again, only do references that are really critical to your recommendation. We're not looking for literature reviews. We're not looking for bibliography. It's really, you know, we envisioned a couple of references.
I got you.
Yeah.
So in other words, since hopefully there wouldn't be so many links that they wouldn't fit in the narrative, is what you're saying.
Exactly, Emil. Thanks.
Okay.
Yeah, and there's space there for 10 different peer-reviewed studies and 10 different other sources, which is more than enough, right? I mean, we're all going to need to be kind of wading through these, right, and trying to read through them to formulate our opinions on them. And so it's just, we've got to, you know, keep it succinct and manageable.
Right, so I think we have a couple in the chat. There's questions about the proposal forum. I put the link that will bring you directly to the proposal forum. If you're having trouble, write to the Gmail address and we'll help you out. We can try and help you out, just like with the collaboration table. I did put the link in there. The follow-up email that will be coming out following yesterday's meeting and today, it will have information about the change in the due dates. We'll put all of the available links, including the shared folder, the proposal forum, the collaboration, all in one place so that you don't have to go back to previous ones. And if you're having trouble, just let us know. A couple of you have already done that and we've helped you out. So I know Google can be troubling sometimes. It can be confusing. Just let us know and we'll help you out. Oh, here's I'm seeing some questions in the chat, Tom.
Okay.
It says NH, right? My chat doesn't say your name, so I'm to NH. Will a rejected proposal be notified? Yes, because it's easy to mix things up. So if if we notice that, oh, somebody mixed up sections or whatever, we will alert the proposal sponsor and ask them to resubmit. And in fact, this question didn't come up, but you have the ability to go in and edit. So if you submit a proposal, so Joe submitted a proposal. If he says, oh, you know what, I want to change it a little bit, you have the ability to go back in and edit. And we did that on purpose because as you learn more, as you talk to collaborators, if you hear webinars, if you learn more and you want to be more specific in your proposal, you will have that opportunity. Also, you're not limited to one. That's another thing in there. That's why you need a Google account. There were certain features that moved us into you have to have a Google account. That was another one. We are allowing people to submit more than one proposal. See any questions? Oh, there's people that like your proposal, Joe. They want a copy of it. Well, let's give him an opportunity if he wants to update it. Oh, to several people, Joe. All right.
We've got a hand from Patricia Shanley.
Yeah, thank you. This is very helpful. I want to thank Eileen and Tom, and I thought that was an excellent proposal. My question is the following. I'm on a couple of international panels about forests, and I've never heard of a restriction on only open access literature, because oftentimes the most recent literature is not open access for a year or two. And so I find that restriction a bit questionable, just because sometimes there's very new, good, rigorous literature that is not yet open access. So I just wondered about that, whether that really...
Yeah, it's not restricted as much as encouraged. We actually have queries into copyright infringement. Since you're on panels, we probably are used to sharing articles that are behind a paywall. It's different for us. We're not at a university. We're not part of a group where we pay a subscription. So we are making inquiries. Two kinds of inquiries. One saying, what are the copyright laws in a group like this? And number two, if there are copyright issues, can we be exempted? Because we're doing this, as nonprofits. So that's in the works, Patricia. And you're right. There's like really good articles, but they're behind a paywall. They're restricted by copyright. So.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so we're trying to figure that one out. What else? Other questions? Jim?
So I guess a question related to the example that was provided, and maybe Eileen, you mentioned this, but is the focus to be on things that can be easily translated into legislative proposals, or could we present a concept that is more framing for a whole kind of series of activities that could follow? And I must admit, I'm not familiar with all the statutes that apply to forest management in New Jersey. I mean, I know that better on the federal level, and the books that contain them are, are in volumes, not not a single volume. So I'm just trying to figure out if we frame a concept and can get people to agree on a concept, is that adequate to then, I guess, shape the legislation that may be needed to implement it? Or is there a way to know what the basic statutes are, or get information about the basic statutes that guide forest management today, so as not to create something redundant, but something that amplifies or builds upon some of the existing requirements that apply to the state forests? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does, Jim. I mean, I think we could call upon, as I think we've noted, we have little to no resources or support from the legislature for this, but we are in touch with and the OLS staff, right, and who've said, well, if there's anything you really need, let us know. So we certainly could ask them if they can provide us sort of easy access to the existing statutes. That way, if we have any work group members that really want to dig into those and think about their proposals in relation to those statutes, they could. So,
yeah, no, I don't want to make this too complicated, Tom. I mean, I was just thinking about, is there a basic kind of organic act that applies to the management of the state's forest lands as there is for national forest system?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. Why don't we, I mean, unless my co-chairs disagree, why don't we ask our OLS contacts if they can answer that question for us and provide us, a link or the,
Yeah, we have some of that. I'm going to put the there's a shared folder in Google where we're putting general information, including the recordings, and we have the statutes that exist. There's a couple of them. They're in there, but we can see if there are more, and we can have a folder that says laws and statutes on forest, and we can put them in the shared folder. And that way, there's shared information. If you cite any of that in your proposal, that should be easy enough to cite. I'm going to put that in the chat right now.
And they're in the shared folder, you said.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do people know how to access that?
That's what I was just going to ask.
Yeah, through this link. There's a lot of links, which is why, we'll give you all the links we've given you to date, and then expanding that list so that you have one place to go for all the links, just like Leslie requested.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Jim. Good question. Let's see, looks like John Finet has a question, comment?
Yes, in response to Jim's question, I just wanted to throw out there that I'm strongly considering submitting a proposal regarding exactly what the regulations are today, because I think it's a necessary first step in considering what we need to do as a task force. So I'm working on it, and I'll submit it. But I hope that in getting a little group together talking about the rules as they are now, we'll understand where they are working, where they don't work, and what we need to do. Thank you.
Thanks, John. Looks like Mike is next. Sorry, I think we had to. There you go.
Hi. I mean, I don't know what snowball's chance in hell there is, but a lot of these ideas are gonna run into the same problem the state has in a lot of things. Not enough people, not enough money, so obviously that would be a tremendously large stumbling block no matter what we put on paper. I mean, what are the chances of us making lots of proposals that require 10 new Forest Service staff and $1 million? Just throwing it out there.
Yeah, funding proposal, like Joe had.
I'm raising my hand, Michael. I think that's a great concern. And as Eileen just pointed out, a funding proposal, more funding for the DEP, more funding for any agency or any responsible person that would work on that. It's the way to do it.
There's a question in the chat. It said, my organization's email is on the Google servers and we pay Google for them. Do we still need to create a new Google email address? If your email address includes @gmail.com, you can use that, but it has to be like we have Outlook where I work, but it's NewJerseyAudubon.com, so that wouldn't count. So here too, it has to have the gmail.com ending to it. Okay, I see Leslie's hand up now. How long has it been up, Leslie? We'll just take you now and then Charlize. You're on mute.
Yeah, my question is, when you bring up issues of funding, we often have difficulty getting answers from DEP about existing funding and sometimes have to go through Oprah. Are we able to like put together a set of questions related to funding? Because we realize that recommendations we make might not only cost money, but they may impact funding you get from federal agencies, et cetera. And is there any way to ask questions of DEP about money?
We can certainly ask them. DEP is a resource for the task force. That was my understanding. I don't know, Tom or Angeli or Andy want to add to that?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, obviously they've been very involved thus far, and I think, they're willing to provide information. So we can and certainly should ask.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Do we send that to you, to your task force address? If we have a list of questions, or how do we deal with that?
Yeah, if there's specific questions to New Jersey DEP, why don't you send them to the Gmail address?
Right.
And then our contact at DEP for the task force is John Cecil. And then we'll see, here are questions that came specific for DEP. Can you answer or provide information about them? I think that's within our realm of requests.
Thank you.
Okay, then back to raised hands. We have Charlize.
Hi, my question is if you have a proposal that actually can make money for the DEP and prove that and it exists and that similar proposals or similar work is now done, for instance, with muskrat licenses, where people take muskrats for commercial reasons, is it not possible to propose that deer be taken for commercial reasons on the same basis as a group, so that we can help with that deer mitigation problem?
Yeah, I'd say that's deer management is one of the areas that we're looking for proposals from. So, oh, I lost you. If you have a proposal that will help with deer management, the answer is yes, submit it. And look for collaborators, because I bet there's a lot of folks interested maybe in that topic specifically. Okay, Jean Montgomery, hand is up.
Sorry, we gotta get Jean to unmute here first.
Sorry. Regarding what the prior person said, there is a law concerning wildlife and how it cannot be taken for commercial purposes like hunting and eating it, deer. If that's worth looking into, it is on the books, and that's why the state can't, to my knowledge, support that as a commercial thing.
Okay. Actually, that's a good point, Jean. DEP or our OLS colleagues can be resources for existing laws, because we might see some proposals where there is a law already about that particular thing. So two things, one, please look that up to see if what you're proposing is already out there, or if it's out there in the opposite, like you can't do it. Or we can ask DEP and we can ask OLS.
Right.
That's a good point.
But then again, we are making recommendations to the legislature, which obviously could involve changes in state law.
True.
So
True.
if something's in state law, it can be changed. If something's in federal law, then I think that's something we need to
True.
obviously be aware of. But if it's in state law, it doesn't mean it can't be changed.
And the only other thing was the state budget data is available online. It was cited in one of the reference materials. I think it was the joint NJCF PPA report, and the data that's available may go back as far as 2018 due to obvious issues with getting the report out due to the pandemic.
Mhm.
So just
Okay, we'll look that up and we can put it in the share folder.
Okay, do we have other questions? Did we ask, do we have anybody on the phone? Did we ask if anybody on the phone wanted to?
Yeah, can they unmute themselves or do we unmute
I think
them?
they have to unmute themselves. What is it, *6 or *9? I can't remember.
Oh, there is one phone.
R6, Tom.
*6.
Yeah.
So the
Okay.
person on the phone, if you would like to ask any questions or comment, it's *6. If not, no problem. Just wanted to make sure you knew you had the opportunity.
Yeah, someone mentioned a distinction. I had said that DEP manages the state lands. They do manage the state lands, but not municipal and township. So someone wanted that distinction. Town, you know, if town has like land that was purchased with Green Acres, they manage it. So thank you for that distinction.
Right. And we did clarify that when I say our, you know, when we say our focus is on public forest lands, we're talking about state, county, and municipal forest lands.
Yeah. Okay. Jean, your hand is still up. Is that legacy or you have another question? You're smiling, so. All right, then we have Melanie McDermott.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
So my question is, we've been focusing on legislative proposals, in other words, laws, which makes a lot of sense because this is a committee that Senator Smith called for. But would it make sense, would it be appropriate to, there are other aspects of forest policy, you know, particularly budget allocations, prioritization, and general policies of how the DEP and wildlife management is conducted. So those are not necessarily legislative proposals. Would that type of proposal be appropriate? I mean, particularly we're talking about management of public lands, and as you pointed out, that's under the jurisdiction of the DEP. So if we wanted to see changes or ideas in how the DEP implemented forest management, I don't think that would be a legislative proposal, correct?
Oh, I mean, it could be, right? I mean, first of all, the legislature passes the annual budget. So to your question about
right,
budget and funding for DEP and for public forest lands, the legislature, you know, has purview over, you know, how much funding is or isn't allocated. So that's totally appropriate. And also the legislature does give direction to various executive agencies. And, you know, Jim was referencing that, right? Where we talked about what is the existing underlying statute right now that governs and provides direction to the DEP. So within reason, right? I mean, the legislature can and does provide kind of overarching direction to the agencies, including the DEP. And there's a certain level of detail that, you know, the legislature doesn't get into, but in terms of kind of overall direction and goals and so forth and policies, yeah, the legislature can absolutely prescribe that, you know, to the DEP to a certain degree. So I think, I guess, long and the short, I think it's all fair game. Those are all things the legislature can weigh in on and set direction on.
Great, thank you.
Okay, in the chat we have, can we send a proposal, the same proposal to both work groups? We ask you to pick one. I know for some of these topics, that's going to be tough, but just pick one work group that you think it aligns with best. All four of us will see it. So if we think it belongs somewhere else, we will do that, but don't submit it twice. Do submit it once and pick one work group. Okay. And I'll take another one from the chat and then we can go to Jim. It says, what about books that have not been uploaded to the web? And there's a 1988 book cited, Protecting the Pinelands. What do you think, co-chairs? Is it a PDF? Can you scan it, make it a PDF? Is that?
You talking about a whole book or a chapter?
Looks like books that have.
I wouldn't
not-
scan the whole book.
I know, yeah, you're right. All right, let's think about that one. That's a good question because I'm sure there are other publications.
I mean, maybe an excerpt, right? With the, so pull out the excerpt of a book that you feel is most relevant to your proposal, provide the citation for the, for the full book, and pull out the excerpt, turn it into a PDF and upload it.
Okay. Okay, Jim, another question?
Actually, Tom's response to the question right before helped me understand my ignorance of exactly how the the State Forest Service works. But of course, at the national level, for example, the Forest Service has its own wildlife staff, its own watershed staff, recreation staff, etc. My understanding of the New Jersey Forest Service is it basically has a forest focused management structure and team, correct? So, and if I'm wrong about that, you can correct me, but so then if some of the issues that come up, say, are related to wildlife or related to watershed health, etc., would they be managed through the State Forest Service, or would they necessarily require engagement with, say, Fish and Wildlife at the state level? Or, I think in the Newark watershed up by me, I mean, that's really managed ostensibly by Newark, but the state plays a role, certainly, because the adjacent lands have an impact. And then the parks, of course, play a role because of the surrounding parks. How do we address that or parse that if it affects the proposal that we seek to share? Or how do we narrow the scope of what we are proposing to you so that it is truly just within the focus of the New Jersey Forest Service? Or is that not necessarily a concern? That is, we can raise issues and then we'll let the legislature figure out, who's got to do what to achieve whatever the outcome is we seek to achieve.
I mean, one reaction I have, Jim, is I don't think it has to be limited to, lands under the purview of the Division of Forestry, right?
There isn't. Can I just jump in? There isn't any
Yeah.
land that's under the purview of the Bureau of Forestry. All the land is either under the purview of the Division of Parks and Forestry, which have superintendents,
right,
or the Division of Fish and Wildlife, or the New Jersey Natural Lands Trust, or I think there might even be another entity in there somewhere. The Bureau of Forestry, the people who review plans and, deal with all the FIA data, they don't write prescriptions. Until very recently, they didn't write prescriptions for anything but certain parts of state forests. And even then, there's still the superintendent of the state forest that gets involved. So there has historically been a huge disconnect between the land managers and the Bureau of Forestry within state government. They're very much siloed. It's much better than it used to be. But I mean, regularly, the Division of Fish and Wildlife for decades has created plans and never consulted with the Bureau of Forestry other than to get a signature on the final plan, and in fact, years ago, they didn't even have to get plans. So in fact, they still don't have to get plans. They just do it as a policy matter right now, but there's no regulation saying that there has to be a plan. So it's very complicated. It's exceedingly complicated as to who has management authority over particular lands. The policy can be one way, and then with a new commissioner or a new, assistant commissioner of certain departments, it can change on a dime. So it's really complicated because it's hard to put a finger on who has the authority over anything.
Well, that's a good segue, Emil, to, I noticed that David Golden from New Jersey DEP has his hand raised, and I imagine he would like to respond or has a question. So David,
I
you're
didn't
up.
mean to set you up, David, sorry.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I'll just make a quick comment here in response to Jim's question that DEP is here as a resource, as was mentioned previously, and that includes Park Service, Forest Service, Forest Fire, and Fish and Wildlife. So John Cecil, DEP decided that John Cecil would be our primary point person. So his name is there as a representative for DEP, but he's drawing from all the resources within DEP as appropriate and as needed. So if questions come up regarding deer management, for example, to use an example, topic that's been floated here previously, we are here to help understand the existing regulations, some of the things that we think might be necessary if there's an interest to forward a proposal to further reduce the deer herd and other species. So we're here, we're ready, and so feel free to use this as a resource. And just briefly on Emil's comment, yeah, there's certainly complexities within the state system. And we certainly can't address them here and now, but just to acknowledge that there are, but we're all here to help try to work through some of those as the process moves forward.
Yeah, thank you, David. John Cecil also offers his assistance as much as they can offer. So let's take advantage of them. I am taking down some of the questions that I thought are DEP focused. So, and then Leslie's going to send us some additional ones. So we'll probably send you some questions, you and John both, David. Thank you. All right, I see Melanie's hands is up. Is that a new question, Melanie, or legacy? Uh-oh.
Sorry, that was legacy. I'll take care of it.
Okay, thank you. All right, I'm looking in the chat for any additional questions. I'm not seeing any. We have Patricia Shanley again with the raised hand.
Thank you. I'm just curious about a theme, whether it would be fitting or appropriate or not. It would be about education and training of forest stewards, particularly youth, given that invasive species control is so labor intensive and many municipalities cannot, pay. There's a problem with budgets. I'm wondering whether harnessing the youth labor force through education and boosting community involvement could fit, or is that outside of the purview?
What do you think, Tom? I think that's within.
Yeah, I think if there are ideas, and it's good to think outside the box, right? There are ideas that can help deal with problems, challenges on our public forest lands, then that absolutely fits.
Yeah, it's like a civilian climate corps.
Yeah, it's like YCC.
For New Jersey. Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah. I hope we see that.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, Paula, your hand is up.
Thank you. That was kind of the idea behind my proposal, which I didn't fill in the cells properly. Sorry. But it's not just about getting the students out there and having a low-cost workforce. Kids need a sense of purpose, and knowing that they're perhaps doing some kind of research comparing what it's like to remove invasive species like stilt grass, for example, from a slope, and seeing what effect that might have on soil loss compared to another area. In other words, having two areas of comparison. You do get the invasive species removed, but you also have something within the learning process that's going on as well. I'm not sure if I'm in the right meeting or not right now. But I just thought, that's why I put that proposal out there. But I really love the idea of a civilian, like a CCC, but climate change core. I really like that idea.
Well, Paula, we heard it from Patricia as well. I think there's interest. So let's get your idea in that table so that we can share. We're going to help you with that.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, someone's not on mute. We hear you.
For dinner? Do you want to do something fun? What do you want?
Oh, something fun. Okay, we're gonna let you know we
You're
can
gonna
hear
make us all
you.
hungry, whoever that is.
Something fun for dinner, I heard.
I'm in.
I want something fun for dinner.
Okay, let's see if we
You
can.
gotta order for 85, whoever that is, so.
Okay, they got it. All right. Well, that was a nice moment of levity. Okay, Elaine Mann, you have your hand up.
Yes, I'd like to reference the questions that we had about a youth group. If we formulated on the plans of the clean communities, they had specific funding. It was a tax that was levied upon paper goods, etc. We did have workforces go out and the children were engaged in the necessary tools that they had to clean up. This, we would give them the necessary tools and have programs in the schools. And children really love this sort of thing. Plus, it's a great service to the whole state. So I agree with that statement. Thank you.
Great, there's three. I'm writing all three of your names because you're all interested in education. Elaine, Patricia, and Paula. Maybe you can all collaborate. All right. Okay, we don't have any more in the chat. Any other hands raised with questions?
I see Jim.
Oh, there's Jim. I missed you.
Yeah, I apologize for having another conversation. My wife says she can't entertain everyone tonight, though.
Oh, was that you?
That was me. But you know, I just want to offer this observation, and I appreciate everybody's efforts here, and David's comments about the complexity and yet simplicity working together. I mean, you know, it seems to me that a challenge that we face is trying to define the appropriate role of the Division of Forestry, but really what we're talking about is land management, natural resource management across many agencies. Mm-hmm. And you know, I don't know how, I'll have to learn more about actually how DEP functions. I'm learning quickly, but it just seems to me that some of the issues that we were likely to deal with based on what I've heard today can be dealt with by the Division of Forestry, and others are certainly going to require input from other divisions and other players in the process. And I'm trying to figure out how to put into 2,200 characters or 2,500 characters, you know, a framework that reflects that and the kind of collaboration and coordination that's necessary, while at the same time reflecting and incorporating all the concerns I've heard in this meeting and the meeting we had yesterday about issues affecting these lands. So I'm trying to figure out how to make this simple without making it too complicated.
Simple is better.
No, I appreciate everybody's interest, and I acknowledge my less expertise on the specifics in New Jersey, even though I've spent a lot of time in that part of the world. And so I just, you know, wonder how, you know, process-wise, for all of you, the four of you, you know, if there isn't a way to kind of identify the common threads or themes between the two groups and use that maybe as a starting point, you know, where there may be agreement, or there may be agreement on the issues, and see if there isn't some way to resolve those and moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think I hear what you're saying, Jim. You're sort of looking for that. Is there a higher level kind of framework that, you know, people generally are on the same page, yeah, or not? And I mean, we're kind of getting there. This is a little more bottom up, right? I mean, I think we're seeing what emerges, and whether that whether that does come together into such a framework, as opposed to starting with a framework and then filling in the details. So, I mean, I would welcome your thoughts on putting a proposal together that does try to offer a higher level framework, and then we can talk about that, right? And I think we've been steering people to more specific proposals, as opposed to sort of a more kind of comprehensive. But I don't think that those things are exclusive, mutually exclusive, and that we couldn't or shouldn't have some conversation about some kind of larger conceptual frameworks for how we should be thinking about our public forest lands.
Well, maybe I can try to make a contribution there, but I yield to my colleagues, all of whom I'm looking at on some of the more specific issues they dealt with, and maybe I can learn a little bit more about that as well. But I do think that not only in New Jersey forests important, they're important for many reasons that are more complex than even managing national forests, just given the impacts it has on populations, on water quality, on wildlife, the issues of climate change and the like. So, but I'm struggling to figure out what my 2,500 or 2,200 characters might focus on, and it's probably better for me to think about this in a larger context and then see what everybody else proposes and see if there aren't ways to fit all the pieces together. So just offer that observation.
Yeah. We have John Thonet.
Yes, just responding to Jim. I agree with the comments that Jim is making.
For your capital stuff.
Joe.
Bad, right?
That's really in.
I do agree with Jim. And Jim, I'm going to prepare a proposal that touches on at least some of the issues you're raising. And I will be sure to read any proposal that you have. And if there's some way to get together, I think that would be great.
Okay, that'd be great, John. I appreciate it.
All right, I wrote that down. Going to connect you. Okay. Patricia Shanley again. Oh, were you done, John? Did you have another? Okay. Patricia?
It's just in response to what Jim said. I also agree on that. I think that in terms of what I see internationally, forestry has really moved in a different direction given climate change, biodiversity loss, and the remarkable and a kind of astonishing results that are happening about forestry and human health. And so an older reductionist concept of forestry where it's sort of logging has kind of passé. So there's social forestry, there's integrated natural resource management, there's joint forest management, community-based forest management, pro-forestation. There's so many different ways that forests have been looked at. And I'm new to New Jersey, so it's just surprising to me that we may be in an older conceptual framework, and we may need to really revise the conceptual framework. And that is complex, but there's so much work that's been done on it already. And I think we can learn from a lot of these examples. And I think there's a great basis with this phenomenal group we have here and these terrific people that have been working on this so long. So I'm not an expert here at all, but from this other perspective, there's a great deal to do here. And I thank you for giving us the forum to do that.
Thank you. All right. Anything else in the chat? I will summarize that there were several of you who indicated the interest in like education, Conservation Corps, and I've written your names down and we'll connect you. We also have John Thonet and Jim Lyons being connected, and perhaps Patricia, you're going to connect yourself there too. That's informal. That's not on the collaboration sheet. Feel free to put these ideas on the collaboration sheet. I suspect there'll be many other folks interested in these topics. Okay, I don't see any other hands up. Do you, Tom, or in the chat?
I don't. Maybe I'll just take a moment just to, I want to thank everyone for not just your participation, but just I'm really encouraged by how this is unfolding so far. Just you know, we we have some incredible expertise on this work group, people that really come at this from lots of different perspectives with really significant experience. And, you know, we're just really going to benefit from that. And I'm so thankful for your participation. And I'm encouraged and I'm excited about, you know, we're now just finally getting into the substance. A lot of this has been about process up to this point, which is really necessary because we don't have a good process. We're not going to get anywhere. But I'm excited about, you know, now getting to the point where we're really kind of digging into substance. And I appreciate how thoughtful and, you know, just cooperative and constructive everyone is being. And I think if we keep this up, some really, you know, really good things that can come out of this process. So just wanted to say that and thank you all.
I agree. All right. Well, thank you. Thank you, everyone, for coming out tonight, and look for some emails coming with links and information, and feel free to ask us questions as well through the Gmail account.
Thank you.
All right. All right. With
Thanks,
that,
everyone.
we'll end tonight's meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.